So this is Colorblock. Colorblock is my latest collection with Free Spirit Fabric. This collection actually came out last year. Last October it was shipping to stores, so it is available worldwide. Well, I say that it is available while it lasts because this collection did come out last year. It is a one and done collection, meaning when the fabric sells out, it is gone for good. My fabrics, just so you guys know, if you're not familiar with the fabrics as well, these are available at independent quilt shops. You can find them, brick and mortar quilt shops. You can also find some places online. I know places like Simon Says Stamp, they sell fat quarter bundles and pre-cuts. But if you're looking for it, this is not a fabric line that is sold in any chain store. So if you're looking for it, my advice is just to Google Eclectic Elements and see where it is sold in your area or online. What I love about Colorblock is it's such an amazing collection. It is like, to me, it's reminiscent of an artist palette. It has like this, I don't know, this great visual impact. I love all of these cubes of vibrant tones. Of course, they're distressed with a time-worn grunge. And this collection really is the same art. And I will say this was a tough thing to convince Free Spirit Fabric to do. Why? Because typically when it comes to fabrics, you design collections with a lot of different, at least for Eclectic Elements, a lot of different designs and art. And this was one art piece that I wanted done in many different scales. You can see here, this collection is 4 different sizes, but also different substrates. 3 of these are quilting cottons. And then this one is canvas cloth, which is has just a nice textured weave to it, if you will, for home decor pieces. Like I said, it is a one and done collection, so when it's sold out, it's gone for good. But this was all inspired by a piece of art that I did. Now this, I would say, this is the original art designed for this collection, but the original art that this was inspired by was actually something that we donated and auctioned off years ago. That was a piece that I did for the Ranger booth to celebrate distress. And this is all done with distress. I did this one on a piece of chipboard so we could scan it in. You can just see that it's folded so they can get it into the scanner. But this is just done on distress watercolor cardstock with all of the colors of distress. Well, not all 72 because we didn't have them at the time. And then went in and did a little bit of grunging, of course, with crayon. And what I love, of course, is how this collection, it is digitally printed, has captured every little nuance and detail of what I love. So first we'll get into the scale. So this is mosaic, and so these are tiny little mosaics. It's all the same arts, just scaled down and done on a repeat. So shout out to Jenna for creating this cool repeat of all of these little tiles. Then of course we do have tiled. Tiled is kind of that medium size, probably I would say my go-to. I do like this scale. It's really, really good. And then we have patchwork, which is bigger, but see what I mean? Like you can see all of the details, all the ink splots, the little crayon, all of that. And then of course, this is the canvas. Look at that canvas cloth. See what I mean about that texture? You can actually see that in the canvas. It's still pliable. All of these are pliable, so they can be used for quilting, home deck. Of course, you saw the shirt and the hat. But we're going to talk about different types of makes to make with fabric, because one of the things that I want to say is don't be intimidated if you don't sew. I'm the first one to stand up and say, look, I don't really sew well. I understand sewing on paper. I can kind of do some sewing. But this is something that I'm not super comfortable in, but I do it a little bit more. And so what I like about this collection as well is the fact that it's great for crafting. So speaking of crafting, if you have a craft shop, be that brick or mortar, online, and they don't sell fabric, you might want to check into it that maybe they start selling it. I know there are several stores, I know like Whimsidoodle, I think even Frank Garcia, they sell fabric. I'm not sure how many other stores, but if you're out there and you carry Eclectic Elements, do a shout out here in the chat so people know where to find you, because the crossover of fabric for mixed media can be done on so many levels, everything from junk journal to die cut to collage, and you're going to see a whole variety of makes today. Okay, so when it comes to fabric, you can buy this by the yard. Of course, it is yardage, so a lot of stores will have bolts of fabric, but you can also get what's called a fat quarter pack. So a fat quarter, it's a fat 1/4 inch yard. So I've talked about this in previous Eclectic Elements lives, but this is all folded up. It's a much larger piece. And I know that there's some places that sell pre-cut squares, like I mentioned Simon Says Stamp, where it's just a 10-inch piece of fabric and you get a whole variety of it. What I like about this is the fact that you can use it for so many different things. A little bit of fabric goes a long way, and it just depends on what you're creating. I saw someone ask where in the UK. Again, my advice would be to Google, but Art from the Heart in the UK sells Eclectic Elements as well. So yeah, it's really, really a fun collection. So let's get into it. A shout out to the makers. Now the makers will be linked. You can check out the maker page, but I will say that following this live, there will be a blog post on timholtz.com that will show you all the makes, who made what, and links to their social accounts. I can say that Richele, Paula, and Stacy will be sharing any patterns that they use during this live. They'll be posting those on the blog. So if you're looking for specific patterns for some of the makes, they'll be sharing that info as well. So a shout out to Paula, to Richele, to Stacy, to Paula, Patty's sister, and to Suzy for creating really a whole variety of different types of makes to show off Colorblock, right? And Mario, of course, he'll be there to kind of help me out. If you have any questions that I miss, I'll definitely try to monitor the chat as well. So this first make that Richele created, this was actually the first make that we saw with Colorblock, and quite honestly, it just made me smile because, well, they're blocks of color. And she said, to be honest, as soon as I saw Colorblock, I just thought of checkers. So she actually made a colorful checkerboard and a little pouch to hold the wooden checkers. Now, I'm not sure how realistic this is to play, but it doesn't really matter. It's still really fun. So I love the idea of even as a display piece that Richele did. And that's the thing that's always important to remember as a maker. Follow your muse, right? Whatever you see, whatever you like, if that inspires you, do that. But the cool thing, of course, about Colorblock, and you're going to see in this live, that because it's already blocked, you of course could cut it apart. And you'll see that in some of the makes that the makers actually cut apart the different blocks. But the beauty of this, of course, is that that grunge already gives you that illusion that things are stitched together. But Richele went in and did hand stitch accents around all the blocks. And then of course, literally stitch and quilted. And look at that. Look at the mosaic on the back. Oh, see that? You could just hang it up like that too. This could be a wall hanging. This could really be anything. But all of that black stitching, that is all hand stitched. Richele loves to sew. I will say she is a maker that loves to sew. And it's really interesting how many makers I think in the papercraft kind of mixed media world do a lot of stuff with fabric. It's a great way to incorporate color and texture into your work. So just a fun make to kind of kick us off, right? A little checkerboard. This next make, I'm going to pick these all up because I actually have two little stacks of them. Stacy created these, and I love this. I love the idea of working with fabric. So there's two different sets that Stacy did of coasters because you can do sewing or you can simplify it. Okay, that's the thing to remember when it comes to being a maker. You can make however you want and whatever inspires you. This first set, this is a no-sew make. This is taking adhesive back cork that Stacy found. I think she got these on Amazon. Actually just stuck on different scales of Colorblock, just cut it, did the fabric, and then around the edge use a little distressed collage medium. You can also use fray check just to keep the fabric from fraying, and now you have some great fabric coasters. No sewing, just cut and go, because again with Colorblock you have all of that grunge, all of that design in there already done, okay? But if you want to sew, you can of course go up in different size and different scale. And look at this set of little coasters that she actually put together just by sewing the edges. That's what's, so when you first look at it, you're like, oh, she's sewed all these squares together. Nope. This is just taking that middle-sized one, or I'll just say the larger one. It just depends if we're talking quilting cotton. This is Patchwork, so this is the largest square in the cotton. And that just did a quadrant cut and then went around, did a little batting inside. I love the mosaic on the back, and then stitched around the edges. So again, the middle part is not stitched. You could, but I love the fact that you don't necessarily need to do that. And look at all these great colors. See, isn't that, it's so much fun. I love this collection. You could just tell my excitement. I love how that that inky goodness has translated so well to fabric. It's remarkable to me. It's pretty unbelievable. And just have it all soft. So I love that she did this set. I love that it's got just different colors from Colorblock, so you can make a whole set just cutting a section of that fabric. How great is that? These could be, again, covers of journals. I'm seeing in the chat all the different ideas flying around. That is the beauty of that. So yeah, sew, no sew. Coasters. And again, Stacy's going to be sharing like links to where, you know, what she actually used in that. So I think that's really good. Perfect. Perfect. That can go. Thanks, Mario. All right, next up is an apron. I saw right away people talking about aprons, and Paula created this apron. Look at how fun and colorful this is.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to try that on.
Beautiful apron using, yeah, of course, using Colorblock. So you can see how she used that smaller mosaic in there for the two pockets on the front, and then you can see tiled. But isn't that just, now that is a maker apron just with all of those colors, because if you're doing ink or mixed media, ooh, so good. Now I want to talk about another thing, which are a lot of the solids that you're going to see makers use in the makes today, solids that they're going to use as an accent. And like I said, my fabrics with Free Spirit, many of them, well, most of the collections are one and done, but they do offer some foundational pieces that they do in like a replenishment every 2 years. So there are oftentimes that pieces of a collection could come back for a specific amount of time. And in this case, the provisions, I'm just going to bring these in. These would be like the solids that I did in Eclectic Elements, and these are all still available. But what's great is, of course, this was inspired by the Distress palette, definitely more of the neutral or kind of earthy designs. But when you see these solids used, like Paula used here on the apron for the straps and the trim, this is really where most of the makers are picking up their solids, because as you can see, these were also designed based off of distress backgrounds. So all of the little inks and stains and marks in all of the yummy distressed colors, it's just different than a traditional solid. And of course it plays perfect with so many different fabrics in Eclectic Elements, not just Colorblock, but really this is kind of my solid of choice. I love how they're, yeah, so many good colors. So I just wanted to talk about that. These are available, the provisions, but of course you can use really whatever you want. So yeah, nice apron. I'll put this up to the side. Mario can show it off later.
You know it.
Fancy. It'll go good with your hat. Very good. So as we get into makes, I'm going to go from like crafty makes onto a little bit more complex, because it's important that you remember that there's something for everyone. Okay, there could be something for everyone when it comes to making and really what you can create with this. I'm just going to try to zoom in a little bit, see how that plays out. I always get a little nervous. Oh, there we go. Not bad. So Richele made these little keychain fobs. This is nice, just using a strip of fabric. I like the little hardware clamp. You can use these for many things. What I thought about right away, I'm like, this would be a great thing to hang ink swatches off, right? You can replace the key ring with, you know, maybe one of the wire rings that I use for swatches, and actually put all your color swatches on, and then just have this nice colorful tab to hang them off. Of course, you can use them for tools. You can put scissors on them, and there's different types of attachments. You can use a key ring, you can use some fancy little spring hooks, but they can also just be for luggage or any other type of fob. So this is kind of a great starting out kind of project where you can just cut that strip. And again, nothing is stitched across these. This is just where she finished the edges and created these straps. But that's a great idea, especially because you can play around with the size and scale of the blocks. I also like this one, that it just has that little rectangular design, because she, instead of cutting it where you've got the block, she kind of cut halfway, so it creates these little rectangles like colorful dominoes, right? Neat way to think about Colorblock and how you cut it, and you'll see that in the makes as well. Yeah, I just saw somebody said dog collars. That would be, there's so many different things you can do with fabric, and what I've learned throughout all these years is to just not be intimidated by it. Just try it out. You'll get better the more you do it. And I think that's really important as a maker, is to not be afraid to try and learn something new. Speaking of maker, if you are looking for something to put in your creative space, and you're like me and you're a junker, or you're like Stacy, because Stacy made this, and you have all sorts of trinkety bits around, or just like an old wooden box, another great project to start with is a pincushion, something that you can just stitch. You can fill it with with rice, with birdseed, with pellets, with batting, whatever it is that you want to create with. So you can see here she did, this is weighted on the bottom, so you can use foundations or you can do the entire thing in Colorblock. But look at how Stacy went in and actually stitched and followed those lines. So she just followed the lines in it and just stitched on there just to give that pin cushion. This would be great for pins, for pokey tools, for all of that. But what a fun way to brighten up. It even goes with vintage. That's my point about this, is that I love this whole little box of, I mean, yeah, there's some good stuff in here, just like vintage scissors and paints and clips and little jars of glitter. Just think it's, I'll put this in here. But Colorblock, even though it's vivid color, of course, it has been inspired by the palette of distress, so it does fit perfectly into vintage. Take a look at this eraser, by the way. Just look at that. How cute is that? That's vintage. It's so good. Anyway, I love the idea of the make, because makes don't always have to be complex. But I agree, Tammy, that the stitching really does add a great detail. And you'll see a lot of makers just followed that design. Heck, I even did that. It's really it's actually fun. It's fun to sew and do a little off-road. But I like the variety of makes. I think it is important for makers, and that's why I want to start out with the makes for makers and then go into more of the sewing quilting projects, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do with fabric that you may not think about. So Paula created this. This is using an Etcetera tag as a foundation. So this could be, again, it could be an Etcetera tag, it could be a frame, it could be the cover of a journal. You'll actually see a journal made out of fabric. But I love how Paula went in and did this Etcetera tag, and then she used the fabric over the background, took a Sizzix die, cut that out, did a little black distress painting. She also used it up here, and see here Paula did some stitching as well, and she gave me some tricks I'm going to share with you in just a minute about sewing and actually using it onto mixed media projects. Did a little pinking on the edge, but I love that. I love the detail of that cream stitching as well. Cute make. So again, taking any kind of foundation piece that you have and create a colorful make. Yeah, you could do this out of paper and cardstock, but how fun is that you can use fabric as a background, because, well, it looks like inked paper, that's for sure, but it's got that feeling and texture of fabric. So good. So good. All right. Speaking of so good, this is seeing the art that it was designed and inspired by, actually kind of reimagined and brought to life in the actual fabric. So Paula created this as well. It's an Ideology vignette panel, so it's just that hollow back wood panel. But here, there you go. She went in, took a cut piece of Colorblock, just using the tiled, that's that middle size of the quilting cotton. She did a little, there you go, little batting in there, a little warm and natural. So any kind of thin batting you want to put in there. Then she went in, followed the lines. I love the contrast of using that cream thread over that dark background, because you can really see the stitching. You can really play around with any types of colors of thread. Then she used little tack nails and just kind of nailed that, I'll just call it a little quilt, nailed that quilt to the panel, and then did a vignette just using Ideology elements, where it could be a photomatic, it could be some vintage things, because the benefit of this, if you're like, well, why wouldn't I just want to do that with, say, paper? Well, first of all, you'll need to make your own paper like this. But the beauty of this, of course, is that you can sew on all of your elements. So here she went in with just some like vintage lace or tulle and actually stitched it on. You can stitch on buttons, you can sew on your embellishments, and that's really the fun of having that fabric surface, because it's got that little bit of give, allowing you to pin. I mean, look at that. Using that clipping sticker on that pin, little hat pin, but incorporating elements to really tie in a story. A great make that, again, you're not piecing this together. You're just taking that piece, and you could create this even if you didn't want to do that sewing detail. You can cut this, you can still lay it onto the batting. Maybe you want to just pin it together. You know, maybe you want to just add your nails in the corner to keep it together if you didn't want to do the sewing. But I do love the idea of starting with a fabric background, having that little bit of dimension in there, that depth, allowing you to stitch on your embellishments. Beautiful make, isn't it? I love this, Paula. It's just so, it's wonderful. All the Ideology goodness, right? The little word plaque, the photo using your ephemera. So many great ideas to incorporate fabric. And what I like about this, again, is that as a maker, I already have the opportunity for colorful backgrounds. When I say colorful backgrounds and I talk about a maker, we could even go to cards. Because yes, you can create cards with fabric and it's easier than you think. And there are many options, many tricks. I've always talked about using glue, but I met with Paula yesterday and she kind of gave me, because I was asking about these makes, I'm like, how did you do this? How did you do this? And she gave me some great tips that I even went and did it. Like yesterday, I was in here sewing because I was incredibly inspired about, well, what I learned.
You did. You had so much fun.
It was so fun.
And you
yeah.
like ran out.
I'm like, I'm out of here. I gotta go shop. And he's like, for what? And I'm like, I'll be back. Because really, when you see this, it makes working with fabric.
Machine was going all afternoon.
It was fun. So here Paula created cards, and the cards are using, of course, the Colorblock fabric in different ways. And I'll show you the cards and then I'll show you the tricks that she shared with me. All right. So here she used a piece of mosaic and then just added some stitching detail. So just because you're sewing on it doesn't mean you have to, first of all, follow the lines of the track. You can still do your edging and you don't have to sew every little block. You can create whatever pattern you want. I like the fact that there again, you have a little metal embellishment that you can sew on. Could you glue this? Sure. Could you use a fastener? Sure. Could you just wrap string around it and glue it if you don't want to sew it? Yeah, you can do that as well. But pairing fabric with cardstock, it actually plays so well together because you get a whole mix of textures. We've got this little, I love this. I love this. This is what I did. This is the one that inspired me because it looks like a little quilt. Because she just stitched on those lines. I love how she cut it on the diagonal because even though it's a block, you can still turn a shape and you can cut it on a diagonal and then adding a little ideology, a little word key. So there's a heart on a card. And then here is a circle card that she did. Again, using Sizzix style, you can take any kind of circle, but then the fabric, of course, is inside. So there again, she did her sewing. So there's no batting or anything in here, and then did her stitching detail and then did that little die cut. So here's the trick, and there's some tricks that I do as well. I think, you know, I say it all the time that every maker's different. You need to do what works for you, okay? That to me is super, super important to do what works for you. So let's just talk about fabric really quick and die cutting. Now, in the past, before I knew better, I was the guy that was like, you could just Xyron, you can stick fabric to an adhesive sheet, or you can just use glue. You can, but if you're sewing and you care about your machine, it's gonna be really important to not use those kind of gunky adhesives when it comes to fabric unless you don't mind damaging a machine, because that type of adhesive, crafting adhesive, will gunk up a machine. And that's when Paula's like, well, I used this interfacing. It's called Heat and Bond. Now, when you go to the store, you can buy this by the yard, but I love that you can buy it by the pack because I can just go and take it right off the shelf. When you're looking for this, there are many different thicknesses of this type of material. And what it is, it's an interfacing that actually stabilizes the fabric, and that helps die cutting, that helps keep everything together. So you want to look for one that says craft or extra firm. That's what she used, that's what I use, and that's what's going to completely change, I'll just say, the texture of this if you're going to use it specifically for card making. Like I said, they do thinner styles, but craft is what she used, that's what I went and used, and it's pretty easy to work with. So you start out with your piece of fabric. So this is just Colorblock fabric. You can see it. When you cut this, because you can take it out, it's in a big sheet. You can see that it's just folded. And so you can cut whatever size piece you need. But when you get it, there's going to be two sides. And the instructions are on the back. I mean, they couldn't be easier. It's step 1, 2, 3. That's it. But one side you can see has that little bit of shine. That's the glue, let's just say. And one side doesn't. So it's really about taking your fabric. You're going to place it pretty side down or ugly side up. You're going to take that shiny, the glue, and you would put that on there. You would have your fabric cut, and then you would place, it could be a towel, it could be any kind of other fabric over the top, and you're just going to iron it. It literally takes like 15 seconds of pressure. You let it cool, and then what you end up with is a stabilized piece of fabric. So this is now part of this. It's now become one. And so you can see that it gives it a little bit more stability, a little bit more body. It's not just flopping all over the place like fabric would be, which makes it, quite honestly, even easier to sew. And I like that. I think to me that was like, that really changed the whole, I don't know, the whole concept of that is that I had a product that would allow me to use products differently. Products in particular, die cutting, okay? Now, before I get into the die cutting, I just want to talk about the sewing part. So yes, you can just put this on and leave it as is. You are good to go, no problem. But I'll be honest, this sewing was easy to do. I didn't have to do any back stitching. I didn't do any knotting. Paula's just like, just go for it. So I place it down, you stitch, you kind of follow the lines. Maybe occasionally I did a little off-road trek. That's okay. You don't really notice it, unless you're looking for the mistakes. But when you just kind of get over yourself and you enjoy it, I was just sewing, 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 turned it, sewing, 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 and that's it. I trimmed the threads. If you're gonna cut this into a shape or you don't want your threads to fray, again, you can do a little collage medium on the edge and that will seal it. For me, you know that I'm all about the threads and the fray, but a little collage medium, it's going to dry matte, or they have a product called Fray Check that will keep that the threads and the fabric from fraying. But I love that. Then I wanted to play around with like a bigger piece. So here I did some black stitching, and quite honestly, I was surprised how much I like the contrast. I know in the quilting world and those at Free Spirit that work with me, I don't really get all the, I'll just say the nuances in quilting. I'm sometimes like, oh, I like that it matches. Or like, actually the contrast is really good to the eye when you put it together. I'm like, eh. So here I did all my stitching in black. And while it's done and it's cool, you don't notice it nearly as much as when you have that contrasting thread. It adds such a different depth. I like them both. So it was good fun. And look, I mean, I did pretty good. I really like, you can see it was so much easier than I thought. But also I learned from, Diane, that when you're sewing, this isn't a race and you don't need to step on the gas.
No, you did really good yesterday. Usually you just hear the machine.
Yeah, nope, I learned like slow it down. Yeah. So we'll talk about die cutting, okay? You can die cut fabric with steel rule dies. Those are those thicker dies because those were designed for fabric. But honestly, there are many thin dies that you can die cut. And this was really the trick because before I would try to die cut fabric and it was a challenge because the pieces would want to fall apart. So when Paula shared about this interfacing, I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense. But to me, I still felt like the trick that I learned years ago at Sizzix still played true for this. And here's what it was. So even though I used the interfacing, when I use a thin die, so this is one of the new vaults because these birds are bigger, and I place the die down, and I just use my standard. I used, you can use a Vagabond, you can use your Switch Plus, you can use any die cut machine, but I placed my thin die down and I ran it through twice. I didn't want to use my precision base plate because there was really no need, but even running it through twice, there were still areas that it didn't cut through. Here was the trick that I learned back in the day at Sizzix. If you take a piece of cardstock, it could be any scrap cardstock, it could be file folders, it could be whatever you want, and you place it on the back of your fabric, just set it there, you don't glue it, place your die down, and you use the cardstock when you're die cutting, you will get a better cut because when the die is going through the machine, it wants to make a cleaner cut. Here, when there is no cardstock, that die is only going into your cutting pads. And we know from die cutting that our cutting pads are these plastic things where the blade's designed to go in. But believe it or not, it's a little kind of self-healing. So the die pushes the fabric into this, but it doesn't necessarily make that clean cut. The cardstock is where the die is saying, right, I've gone through this fabric, but now I've got to go through that paper. And although it doesn't cut the paper cleanly, we don't want it to, we don't care what it did, you can even see the pressure that it put from the fabric itself. It makes for a cleaner cut. And when we say clean cut, we're even talking these little legs. Now, if it didn't have this interfacing, these legs would most likely just fall off because of just the weave of the fabric. And that was really the trick. So again, it was interfacing, it was taking any kind of cardstock, put your die down, I ran it through twice, just back and forth, and then it pops out and it is a nice clean cut piece that you can then glue on because this interfacing also keeps like collage medium or liquid glues from seeping through the fabric. But then I even wanted to try like, well, would that idea work if I did all of my stitching? And the answer is yes, same rules apply. So this is my piece that I've cut. Now, to be honest, because I wanted a nice schmancy piece for live, if I was doing this, I would cut these pieces more in a piece where I would want to use it for a card because I would want to get the positive and negative. I would want to get use out of it. I wouldn't treat it like cardstock like I did here, you know, where you try to get as many shapes in. I would be like, okay, I'm going to cut this so I'll not only get the positive piece, but now I get the negative frame, kind of a 2-for-1 because of, well, the work of that. But I love how it still, see how it even impresses the stitch, like it will cut through those quilted pieces, easy. So you could do bird, you can do feather. I mean, here's another one I did. Not great. So even down to the detail. I didn't do anything to the edges because, like I said, I would like it if it got a little frayed, but you could go around with some collage medium. So very, very simple. So if you're on the fence about like, well, you know, I'm more of a paper crafter and I don't know if I get into fabric, this was a great place for me to just step through and say, I can do this. And again, inspired by the makes. I'm always inspired by the makes. And when I saw that little trick allowed so much more, I don't know, playtime, because I can get out the fabric, put on the interfacing, go in, do my sewing, and then I still have it. I mean, I can use this for whatever I want. I can put it on the front of a journal, I can pin stuff, or I can use it as cardstock and die cut it. But I do love the look, whether you decide that you want to do the sewing, which I think makes a huge difference, or not. Maybe you still like it because you're getting that grunge. So there you go. There's a little tip from a paper craft perspective, that if you want to use your dies and really be mindful of the type of die that you use, right? If your die can barely cut cardstock, then don't bother with fabric. You want a shape that definitely has a bigger surface to cut. You don't want to do like an intricate, you know, doily or lace, but you can certainly do things that have a much bigger appeal, and even down to the little legs, it worked. So fun. All right, so thanks for the inspiration, P. I love that, and I love this. Again, craft. Extra firm, we needed that. Okay. So next we're going to talk about a book that has like all sorts of great mixed media that Suzy did. And Suzy did such a great job on a book, because as makers, you can take something and you can create whatever structure out of it. Certainly you can buy book bases or book kits and you can modify them, but you can also just kind of start from scratch, which is what Suzy did here. Creating this junk journal, and you can also incorporate your favorite papers. So it doesn't always have to be fabric. You saw that with Paula's. You can use the things that you have, Etcetera tags, vignette boxes, cardstock. But this journal, I love how Suzy just went in and did so many different details. She did this little fabric yo-yo. There's a little stick wrapped with fabric scraps. I love the frame that she did, the colorful buttons. So this one is a canvas cloth layer. Then you open it up. Now, this fabric that she's using here, this is called Alchemy. This is also a collection I did with Free Spirit. And unlike Provisions, that is distress-based, this is alcohol inks. So you can see the fluid movement of these. And of course, the colors are really bright. It goes perfect with Colorblock as well. But Alchemy, it's a beautiful line. But look at how she just went in every little detail, like stitching little pockets, doing that little hand stitch detail, little tags in there. I love just seeing the selvage edge used. Again, you can do rub-ons. So there's a lot of remnant rubs in here. These are ideology rub-ons, and rub-ons on fabric is a dream, because as long as that fabric is dry, you can go in and transfer that remnant rub on there and you get way better detail than if you were stamping, especially on something like this. I love the little eyelet that she used, these little twists. There's little twists all over of the fabric that Suzy did. And again, little pocket and button, but you can, you know, in a junk journal like this, you can take scraps and really have good fun playing around with everything. Here, there's some other, look at that, little stamp and then stitch that on, little ideology. There's so many fun elements. Look at, there's some film strip ribbon from ideology, keys. You know, when we talk about fabric, even when I started out with fabric, it's like, why did you want to do that when you don't sew? Because it's a pretty amazing textile to add to your work, and it pairs so well with Ranger inks. You can stamp with archival on fabric if you want, but of course all the ideology elements. And then if you want to glue, just collage medium. Collage medium is your friend. It will dry it on there. But sewing through things like film strip ribbon or just wrapping around, great little details. Again, all of these are all remnant rubs right onto the fabric. But then let's take a look at this page. So this is done using ideology collage paper. Collage paper is that thin tissue that when you use collage medium, it actually makes that paper that starts out white completely translucent. And I think I have some, I don't know. Hey Mario, could you do me a favor? Sure. This bottom shelf right here, fourth basket over, if you take that and slide that out, you're going to see a roll of collage paper. I'll show you what this looks like in the roll. Right here. Nope, one up, one shelf up. There you go. Pull that out. Thanks. If you bring that out, I'll just grab it. Thank you so much. Perfect. Okay, here's what that is. This is how it starts. So this roll starts out as tissue, white kind of crunchy tissue, but when you use distress collage medium, the distress collage medium actually turns this white into translucent. And you can see here that when Suzy used it, you can actually see how there's still some color back there from the color block. So it certainly takes that color that's there and it kind of dulls it down, but then you can go back in and you can add color. You can use distress paint, that is permanent on fabric. You can watercolor with distress paint. Here, all these little details, this is all done, just some hand stitch details. The embroidery floss, so cool how she did that in the little flowers and the berries. But then it stays flexible because distress collage medium also stays pliable. It doesn't crack or anything like that. So that's another way to add imagery, and then you could go in and color and do the detail. Isn't that beautiful? I love all these gathers of thread. There you can see the back of color block, again, some additional stitching. I love that, even though that's the back of all the hand stitching. You know that's my jam, all those details. I think this was so clever, just taking an ideology. I love these large portraits, and I love how Suzy went in and did these little twisted roses. Remember Tammy did those big ones? Look at these tiny ones she did for the hat. I am fabulous. She is fabulous. Stitched on, just use that on a tag. So adding fabric right to a tag, stitching around the edge, a little safety pin just because when it's fabric and you can pin, well, why not? Pin. There you can see same collage paper, but this time it just went on the back of a tag. Then you can go in and use your pencils, your crayons, anything to add color. So you can have some continuity in here by mixing your favorite backgrounds. These are all done with papers, but you can mix it with fabric. I love the paper dolls, Sizzix die cut stamps. I mean, it's everything that you have in your creative space that you can utilize in your journal. So your favorite backgrounds, like this tag, this is just done, it's an emboss resist, just done with distress embossing glaze. Use that as like the page extender for your fabric, because that fabric is what is, I love that stick binding with the little flower on the top. That is really the whole spine of the book, keeping everything flexible, and these color blocks are just really fun. Here she's sitting in this hoop done of fabric, these little fabric twisty beads that are there, that little salvage edge. And Suzy does a great job on YouTube. She often goes through her journals page by page and talks about all the little details that no doubt I skip over because I don't notice them, or maybe don't see them right away. Look at this canvas cloth. I love this beautiful frame around the photo booth, that little lace, but see all these different cut pieces and how they stack? This is what I'm talking about. That frayed, that's my jam. See, really cool detail. Love how you can mix the colors. Because this was inspired by distress, it coordinates beautifully with distress. So all your distress colors, your oxides, your inks, your sprays, you can use those on paper, and of course they're going to coordinate seamlessly with the fabrics of Colorblock. Do a little stamping on fabric. There's Hello Friend. I like it. It just looks like a little tea bag, right? That little string right there, wrapped around there, and of course the windows, so cool. Yeah, I just saw Suzy in the chat say she'll have a flip on her YouTube today. So you can check her out on YouTube and see a little flip through. So many cool details, right? Little hand stitching. And this is something that, you know, from a process perspective, you can often take elements like this and just work on them kind of page by page, create whatever inspires you, and then build it all in the book. Look at that. Look at all those. That is good fun. Little swirly noodly things. Little stitching around there. See? Messy stitch is my jam. There's more collage paper in the background. Again, that pliable page. Ideology flashcards, remnant rubs. This is a nice, oh cool, let's check this out. I think I can, I can pull this out. This big pull out. How great is that? That wonderful layer over the top. This is a ideology transparency. I love that it's dulled down with a little bit, looks like a little collage medium. Might even be some grit paste. I feel some texture in there. It's cool. And then you can see, isn't that a perfect backdrop? So mixing your art mediums with fabric, it's a match made in creative heaven. That really is. Rub-ons, I mean, nothing safe in the world when you just start taking all of these pieces. I love that. Little color block, heart, little ideology. So charming. Another little tag in the pocket. Beautiful, beautiful work, Suzy. So fun, right? So much fun when you're making. So whatever your style is, that's the thing to remember about that. I know Paula does love the French knot. She always does. I love these. I call them little noodly things, but it's all those little, you just go and go. Mine never look very Frenchy. Mine just look like nuggety knots, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Nuggety knots. That's my terminology. All right. I do make a nuggety knot. So this next one, I think, for makers that talked about pencils, Stacy created this. How fun is that you can take Colorblock and make a holder for your distressed pencils? You can flip this up. Just depends on how long your pencils are. You can make this any size. You can line this with vinyl if you wanted to, or just let the pencils get in on that fabric and make even more colorful magic. Of course, you can make these any size you want if you are making, because, well, it's fabric. You can make it whatever size you want. But I love how she created this. I like this one that it kind of folds versus a roll, but you can get the ones that even roll up. But look at all that great, fun, colorful stitching she did. That that wraparound where you can tie it into a knot or a bow. But yeah, how fun is that for pencils? Really, really good. A great way that you can create this. I knew people would like it. So very cool, Stacy. And I'm not sure if she used a pattern or if she just decided to wing it, but I think it's cool. I'm just going to kind of flip this. Well, I'm going to try. There we go. Look at that. Color block goodness. So good. I know everyone's like, now I want to store my pencils this way. I just got them all in the tins, but I love it this way. It is fun to look at this way, isn't it? Yeah, I love that. So good. So good. All right, let me hand you that. All right, I'm going to move some stuff down real quick. All right. So much stuff. I know. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about, got to clear my throat. We're going to talk about bags because there's so many different things to put things in. And I think as makers, we love storage. But I think as fabric lovers, you can make your own storage and you can make so many different things. There's so many different patterns out there for creating bags and pencils and pouches. So Patty created these. So Patty is Paula's sister. And Patty is not on social media, so all of Patty's makes will be on Paula's social media. So if you're ever looking for these, Paula will have all the information, the patterns used, and all that. But this is really fun because this is a great little pouch, and I see Free Spirit talking about, check your retailers carrying Colorblock because you definitely want to get it before it's gone, because when it's gone, it's gone. And I think it is, Free Spirit still has stock, so if your shop says that they're sold out, they do have the ability to order it while Free Spirit still has stock. But I love these kind of pouches because I've had all different types of zippered pouches for years. I'm actually going to bring one in. I've had this type of thing that's just kind of, more meshy industrial. And I love this concept, but this one's got a little trick, a little cool slide down. So you can put in colorful zippers. I love the color line. This one, same bag, but I filled this with some markers just because it makes this part easy. There's little tabs in this one that you can then pull down to expose you could be markers, it could be pencils, it could be whatever, and that just slides around the bottom and then you can utilize it. So I thought it's clever. So it's got this, it's just open, allowing you to pull the tabs down, and now you've got like a pen case or whatever tools you happen to have in there. It could be markers, could be pens, could be scissors, could be any of that. I love how Patty creates so many fun things for us to showcase. Isn't that cool? Really, really clever. And then you just pop that up, just slides up over it, and you zip it back up. So there you go. Opens that, unzip, zipper's a little wider, you got these little tabs, and just pull that down. Clever, clever little caddy. I love it. Yeah, you could definitely spot yours right away, especially making this. And that's the thing, it's always great as makers to learn new things. Think about that. And I'm giving you the advice that I gave myself, because when we first went to Quilt Market, I said to Paula and Richele, I'm like, I don't sew. And they're like, you should try. I'm like, no, it's too hard. It's too confusing. Look, you want to learn something, it's just about spending the time to do it. The same way, whatever your making style is now, you learned that. You learned making cards, or learned doing ink backgrounds, or learned painting. There is no different than if you want to sew, you just learn to sew, and you can start from the basics to the beyond, okay? Love it. Then we've got this little pouch. Richele created these. I love, well, bags. Bags could be for creative supplies for makeup, and I love how she has these lined in all different colors. These were zippers that I used to have in Eclectic Elements, but you can do metal zippers. Patty did kind of some nylon zippers. And so the fact that there is that little scale of print, I love how Richele made these gusseted bags so they can sit at the bottom and you can use them for whatever. Crafty stuff, travel stuff, good stuff, snacky stuff, anything. Well, you know me, I'm like, ooh, I could put snacks in there. I do like a good snack bag. But how great. So I love these bags at Richele. Then it really shows off the need for having that print in different scales as well. They're all good. They really are. You know, whether you're doing something with just the tiny mosaics or whether you wanted to do something with that in-between tiled, or whether you wanted to do something with patchwork or, of course, canvas. But I love these. I know I see a lot of makers asking about, do people sell them? Well, that's another thing. If you see makes during a live, my advice to you is to reach out to that maker that made them and see. I know many makers sell their stuff after lives because it does go back to them. So, you know, doesn't hurt to ask if you don't sew. I got a bag from Richele. You'll see it later in the live because I was like, I need that for me. Stacy created this. Speaking of snacks, Stacy created these. I think these were cute. They are like little snack bags. So it's got a little bit of elastic over here. It's got some vintage buttons, and they're like, see, little snack bags or little lunch bags, but they're all different sizes. So these are just ideas of what you can do for many things. I think these little pouches, if you have, I don't know, little embellishments, or maybe you've got any of your little sewing notions and you just need things to keep them in, I think they're really cute. And I also love the vintage buttons, of course, that she used. They're just little pouches. That's how they open like that, and then you just fold them down and go around that button. Little snack packs. I don't know why, I'm not hungry, but I do whenever I see little pockets, I think, I want to put candy in there. I know, see, that's what it is. Yeah, that's how it is. It's that whole thing of like, I love the idea of this, and I think more than anything, and this is a shout out to the makers again, because when Paula and I were talking about this, I said, I want makes that show off Colorblock for what it is. I understand this could be deconstructed and quilted and made the most beautiful quilts that, I mean, I've already seen some great stuff that people have used Colorblock in, but for the purpose of this live, I said, you know, I really want them to celebrate that the block is already there, and let's just make stuff out of it. And I think it's really, really great. Super cute. Okay. This next little type of bag, Richele made these as well, and I think a lot of us can agree this is perfect for sewing. She did do some beautiful quilting on the back. I love seeing that, how it just, she put the color block on the diagonal and then just did this vertical sewing. But I love these vinyl faced pouches. So there again, it's a whole little set. And what's nice about this is that you can utilize this. First, you can see what's inside, but you can use these for so many things. You can put your scissors in there, or any of your cutting implements. You can do your pencils, pen pouch, paint brushes, but you can decide how detailed you want. I like that these are squishy, so she's got a little bit of batting in there just to give it that little squish. I love that she did all of the quilting on the back. So it does give it a whole different, it just has a different feel than the other bags. You could take it to whatever level you want it to be. And of course that vinyl is nice because you can sew that on the front. She's got the same zippers, but using, of course, your coordinating colors. It could be alchemy, it could be foundations, it could be a regular solid, but let's face it, these fun inky solids really pair well with the inky bit of Colorblock. That's what I think. So absolutely beautiful. Yeah, and Richele can just like, we can just talk about it and she'll sew it. We're like, could you do, and it's done. She's like, here you go. Yeah, she's really amazing. But she loves to sew. That's the thing. That really is her passion. Her passion is just sewing and quilting, and she can't stop. So I like that too. I think she did like 12 different types of projects for this live. It's like, okay, wonderful. So Patty created these. If you remember, if you watched the Frightful live when we did Halloween, Patty made a set of those. And so when we were talking about Colorblock, I said to Paul, I'm like, these would be really cool in Colorblock. They're just these little kind of buckets utilizing the fabrics. But see, again, in the different scales, the different sizes. How fun is that? So this could be something that you could put your markers or anything. If this was going to be an art use, I would say, like, you know, get your favorite coffee cup or mug or something in there and just use that as almost like a little koozie and put your pens or pencils in there. But I love the detail stitching that she did. Again, just kind of following that color block. But you can just use that spacing. You don't always have to follow the lines. Just kind of add that little detail. But it also provides some great stability for these, and you can line them, of course, with color block or with a solid. They're fun, and then they just kind of nest up. So these are, you can put plants in them. Gosh, there's so many different ideas. But I love the ideas for working with these little buckets. They're cute, aren't they? This one especially. I love this little bucket that just sits in the palm of your hand. Great fun, great detail. Sewing in the round. Woo! So good. Pun intended. Okay, we keep going. We still have a few other things. We're going to get into the detail of a lot of things. I'm going to share this, and then, well, I'm going to share this, and then it probably looks like it's going to be the Richele show from here on out. But I will show you this one. So Patty created this. I'm going to zoom out. Oh my gosh, zooming in and out. It makes me nervous, guys. I'm not going to lie. There we go. So this is a pillow that Patty created using color block, just using that panel, of course, of the canvas. And I do love that canvas cloth because it is perfect for home decor. She did go in and follow those lines, just stitching that in black. Then we've got the back, so you can just put that pillow form in there, but really a nice pillow just for decor. So do you have to do this detail part? No, you can just cut a pattern and you can just go around the edge. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people that do so, but I think this is something like, Di taught me how to do this. So I could actually do this. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called piping. I didn't enjoy this part, I'm not going to lie, but I did do it. It was fun. But I love this pillow that she did. Isn't that great? I mean, look at that. As an ink lover, how do you not love squishy ink? Come on. Squishy ink for the win. And this is what this is what I love about canvas cloth, because like you can hear it. It's got that canvasy texture, but it's also very soft. So it's not like, you know, a mailbag. It's just good. So good. I know. It's like, this is, I think like Ranger needs all of their office chairs like covered in this, or I know, right? If you're at a place, this is what I'm saying. If you're even at a creative store, like you should just get canvas cloth and like do any type of accents in your store with that fabric. So Patty created this. Now we're just going to talk Richele, because really the rest of the makes were Richele, and she will be sharing the patterns for her stuff. So let's talk about this pillow, because this one, so good. Okay. Richele created this. I think her and Paula worked on it because I saw an idea with triangles and I'm like, I love the idea of triangles, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. And of course with triangles, from my understanding, you know, when you cut the fabric, you need the seam allowance, and then it would make the blocks smaller. So what they did is took color block, cut it into strips. So now if you look at this pillow, it's actually, you know, they turned the fabric diagonal and cut this into a vertical strip, and then just stitched the strips together, matching up the squares. Does that make sense? So in between here, these are not pieced together. All this is actually strips pieced on that pillow and then quilting going diagonal, but it looks like a bazillion different triangles that were sewn, but it isn't. It's actually strips of color block. Isn't that great? Absolutely brilliant. I love the whole look of this, where if you're like, hey, I want to shake this up and I don't want to do all of the squares, again, because color block is a block, just turn that fabric on the diagonal, cut those strips, and then match them up, and now you create, you know, new squares that are half and half. Isn't that cool? So good, right? Absolutely so incredible. Now, that being said, okay, I know this is a pillow and it's squishy and I can't stop doing that, but the idea, I say this every time I do a live, if you're watching the live, this is about getting ideas. So even if you didn't sew into a pillow and you were, say, getting color block to do stuff for cards, remember this trick. Get your fabric that you're going to use for your cards, cut it into strips, put it together, and use that that heat and bond that I shared and glue it down that way. And then you have this same idea, you just didn't have to sew it together. So it is a way that you can go in and take the ideas that they give and create that. I just love it. I love the idea. It's brilliant, isn't it? Super fun.
Awesome,
yeah, the attention to detail, come on. All right. So next, of course, is another hat. So Mario got 2 hats. He got to pick which one. I like the one he's wearing today with all the colors, but I do love the fact that when Richele does stuff, she's like, oh, I'm going to give you options. You know, here's a hat. I love she put the little snap in so it can be a little pop-up hat, right? Like a little delivery hat. I love that. I think it's very cute. Or that little snap if you're going to, of course, Mario renting his convertible, right? It is. It's very, very, very cute. But are you ready for this? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Come on. Come on. Richele made shoes with Colorblock. Well, she didn't make the shoes. She got the shoe kit. But yes, these are quilted Colorblock shoes that she made for herself. She's wearing them. Well, she will be wearing when we send them back. How amazing is that? Who doesn't want a pair of Colorblock kicks? Come on. Look at that. So cute. Yeah, they're tiny. Like my hand would kind of fit in there. Yeah. But how freaking amazing is that? So she got the shoe kit. She had to do all the stitching on there. I mean, that's just amazing.
They're cool.
They are. They are so cool. And I love how she did all that little quilting in there, quilted shoes. Yeah, and I've seen this done with other fabrics, but seeing them in Colorblock, I mean, come on. That's just the cutest thing ever. I said to Richele, I'm like, you just need to be in the shoe business. You're going to be taking orders for all these people wanting Colorblock shoes. Doesn't want that. Yeah, and she can wear that hat with it. It's really cute. Great little outfit. So, yeah.
I can't even imagine how you do that.
Well, I mean, she showed me the pattern. She talked about that, and she's like, and then you have to, stitch the actual sole onto it. I mean, I know. So good. Brilliant, isn't it? I told you. Just really, really brilliant. I love that whole kit. Yep. Sneaker kit. There it is. That's it. Sneaker kit for the sneaker kit. So she said it was time consuming, but she said it was really fun. So I do love that. This is a little backpack that Richele made. Take a look at these little mini backpacks. I know mini backpacks are definitely very popular. Look at this one done in Colorblock. I love how she used Colorblock and she used the different scales of all of the fabrics of block to make this cute little mini backpack, little travel pack. But see how you can create so many different elements by what you pair, the color zipper you use, any of that, and then of course whatever details you want to add. So this is all quilted, just right on the front, just with those little, again, she didn't go both directions, she just went vertical on these and then using that larger scale. I also like the fact that, when this one, because she has the blocks, but because she followed that same thing, it actually creates like almost these little dominoes or rectangles from the block. But isn't that cute? A great little backpack. Richele's like, she needs to get that back. She said her granddaughter's waiting for it. It's cute, isn't it? It's such a good little bag. And it's got just that full-on zipper that unzips all the way around. Little straps in the back. I'm telling you, Colorblock, it is a playful line. Love it. Love it. I know. Shoes and a backpack. So cute. Then we've got a few bags. And for this, I'm going to switch cameras because I think it's just going to be easier for me to talk about that. Let's go back because they're big. They're big bags. So this bag Richele made, it's a denim bag. So I do love that it's paired with denim. This is quite clever. So it's got these great leather handles. I'm going to kind of stand back so you guys can see that. But this was really just kind of a clever bag. Then inside, you can see it's lined with Colorblock, but it's really a drawstring. So you pull this, and then it becomes that drawstring over the top. So it could be that drawstring bag, but it also just kind of holds everything that's in this tote. You take it. Cute, right? I love the Colorblock over the front of that. That denim's really very, I know, mad skills, I agree. It's amazing. She just keeps going and going and going. So yeah, and if you're looking for the makers, again, timholtz.com, makers, Paula, Richele, Stacy, Suzy, and Patty's makes are Paula's. So yeah, really good bag. This next bag, Richele wanted to do, and this is where I was talking to Paula. I'm like, this is like, I go, is it that stuff? And she's like, well, this is more of like a stabilizer in this bag, because this tote, you can see, kind of stays as a block. But isn't that great color block on the diagonal? So this is using canvas cloth. So this is the biggest scale, and it's also that canvas. But I love how she just created this tote bag, that big boxy bag. I love how it's got color block inside along the bottom. This is provisions, because you can see all those great inky stains on the side. And she created this tote. This is a great crafter's tote. You can put your trimmers in there, right? This is a good little maker tote. Love that. I mean, really, the detail, I'll be honest, when I was sewing, I was staying on the lines, but then I'm sure there's tricks, but then I was like, I'm gonna go a little off-road, it'd be okay. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Love the whole look of how she incorporates it. And I think really anyone that does sewing, you learn all the tricks, all the things that you're going to create. All right, we've got one more make. That's a make that I asked to keep when I saw it, because I was like, well, it's just cool. I do love a good duffel. I love a good travel bag. She made one with Embark. It was all cigar labels, and I'm like, oh, are you gonna do one in color block? I just think it's great because it's boxy, it's simple, it's not too fussy, but it's very colorful and very amazing. It's got a big old metal zip going down that. And then of course, inside, she's like, what color do you want inside? I'm like, black, because I'm good with that. Grunge would be fine. But I love this. I love the whole big duffel tote, and just seeing color block and seeing all of the great details. And she did this one, she actually stitched all the way around each block, but of course it was already on that. But isn't this is a great, it's a great travel bag. It's a great junk bag. It's big, but I like it. It's perfect. It really, really is. That's why I said, I'm like, you need to sell these bags. Like any maker would just, this is what you could take if you're going to class. You could put all your ink kits, your dyes, any of your stuff in there, because it's got just some really strong handles, and I love that metal zip. Brilliant bag. So thanks, Richele. I do love that. Got a little pocket right there. So good. I love the idea of why we need those different fabrics, everything from canvas cloth to quilting cotton. This is what I love about color block. And I'm so grateful that Free Spirit allowed me to do this collection. Like I said, it was a lot of back and forth where they're like, I don't like the idea that it's just one design that you're going to do. I'm like, but as a maker, I would really like having those options. And I think what you can do with just blocks of color, well, as you've seen in this live, it can be whatever kind of maker you are.